So we are back to the study of the Medium's book. Last month, we started this chapter 5, which is spontaneous physical manifestations. We did the first 3 items, 82, 83, 84, 85. We were going to start reading 85, Zoraida, and then that we already read last week, but I think it's important that we read it again. And then we go to 86. So you can read 85 and 86, please.
Okay. Number 85. We have already stated that physical manifestations are meant to call our attention to something and to convince us that there is a superhuman power present. We have also stated that highly evolved spirits do not concern themselves directly with these manifestations and that they use less evolved spirits to produce them, just as we use servants for heavier tasks. Highly evolved spirits do so for the purpose we have just indicated. After such purpose has been achieved, and since it is no longer needed, the manifestation ceases, and 1 or 2 examples will make the matter more intelligible. Number 86. Several years ago, when I first began my study of Spiritism, I was involved with the subject one evening when I heard raps that sounded all around me for 4 consecutive hours. It was the first time that this had happened. I verified that there was no incidental cause involved, but at the moment I was not able to learn any more about it. At the time, I frequently met with an excellent writing medium. So the next day I questioned the spirit who normally communicated through him as to what had caused the raps. The spirit answered me, "It was your familiar spirit wanting to speak with you." And what did he want to say to me? You can ask him yourself because he is right here. So I asked him, and he identified himself using an allegorical name. Other spirits told me afterwards that he belonged to a very high order and that he had performed a, can't see anything else, John.
Very important role on Earth. He pointed out errors in my work, indicating the exact lines where I could find them. He gave me useful and wise advice, and added that he would always be with me and would answer me whenever I wanted to question him.
Okay, since then, this spirit has, in fact, never left me. He has given me numerous highly valuable proofs, and his benevolent and effective intervention has helped me both with the everyday problems of physical life and with metaphysical ones. However, ever since that first conversation, the raps had ceased. What did he in fact want? He wanted to establish regular communication with me, but to do so, he had to alert me to his presence. Having done so, he explained his motives and we established a regular relationship. The raps were no longer necessary. It is no longer necessary to beat a drum to awaken soldiers when they have already arisen. A very similar case involved one of our friends. For quite some time, he had heard various noises around his room, and which became very annoying. Having an opportunity to interview his father's spirit via a writing medium, he learned what it was that those spirits wanted. He fulfilled their request, and from then on, no longer heard the noises. We will point out that persons who have regular and easy means of communication with spirits are much less subject to manifestations of this kind, which is understandable.
Zoraida. So Kardec makes a note here, and that I'm going to ask you to read, Zoraida.
Yes, in Posthumous Works, Part 2, Communication, dated March 25th, 1856, Kardec reveals that this spirit was the spirit of truth, who guided the entire codification comprising the 5 fundamental books: the Spirit Book, the Medium's Book, the Gospel According to Spiritism, Heaven and Hell, and Genesis.
I think it is important so we can understand who was the spirit communicating with Kardec. We discussed physical manifestations. We're talking about spontaneous physical manifestations, meaning physical manifestations that happen independent of the desire or the will of anyone present, and it happens without any intention of those present. The spiritualist movement started that way, right? With the Fox sisters hearing noises that they didn't know what was happening in their house. And then they decided to ask questions to the noises, and the noise started to respond. And it was the spirit of a merchant that was assassinated in that house before they lived there, right? They ended up finding it. They continue to hear too. They were mediums of physical effect, so they continue to hear the manifestations. In the case of Kardec, he's describing here when he first started studying Spiritism. This happened to him once. He heard these noises around him for like 4 hours. First time that it happened. For this to happen, there has to be a medium of physical effect present somewhere. It doesn't need to be Kardec. We know he wasn't a medium. His wife, Amélie Boudet, was not a medium also, so it didn't come from them, but they lived in a neighborhood with many people. So it wouldn't be very difficult for the spirits to find a medium that was not aware that it was a medium to use the ectoplasm to produce the phenomenon. And in this case, when we learned that it was later that it was the spirit of truth, it becomes even more understandable how he could command less evolved spirits to perform the task, of course. So what happens is Kardec, of course, as not being a medium, and one common question was, why wasn't Kardec a medium? If he was supposed to bring the codification, to produce this important work for humanity, why wasn't he a medium? And the answer is, if he was a medium, he would have his own communications, and that would interfere with his impartial analysis with the communications he received from several mediums. We are all biased, right? So if you are producing a work and you have communications from 10 different mediums plus yours, we would have to be very impartial to be able to discard our own communications. And we are not. We're far from perfect spirits. Kardec is an evolved spirit, but also even Kardec would have difficulty separating what he would receive. So it was very important that he was first an educator. So he studied, he was a teacher, he was a scholar, he had the knowledge of how to produce this type of work. And second, he was not an ostensive medium, so he couldn't receive his own communications. He had to trust or to entertain communications from other mediums. So what happened here, he heard these noises for like 4 hours, and then he's not a medium, he cannot communicate. So he just didn't know what to do with them. But next day he went to a medium. At that time of Kardec, the beginning, there was only writing communications, okay? There was no psychophony yet. So because it was important for everything to be written, so Kardec could receive and analyze, because if you receive a psychophony at the time of Kardec with no recording devices, with many people that were not able to write, and so it could happen that a medium will receive a psychophony somewhere in a meeting that nobody would know how to write what the medium received, and then the communication would be lost. So at the time of Kardec, the spirits, the high spirits that were responsible for bringing the information for Kardec used only psychography. So direct writing, not direct, sorry. Psychography, direct writing is without the participation of the medium. Used psychography, so all the communications were written and Kardec would receive them. So he goes to this writing medium, the medium, the spirit answers, is your familiar spirit wanting to speak with you, and you can ask him yourself because he's here. The spirit of truth, which I personally believe it's Jesus. There are some that believe it's the team of spirits that communicated with Kardec. The spirit other spirits told me afterwards that he belonged to a very high order and that he had performed a very important role on Earth. It points me that it should have been Jesus, right? He pointed out errors in my work, indicating the exact lines where I couldn't find them. So Kardec went there and saw that he had made mistakes and that needed correction. And since then, the spirit, in fact, have never left me. Jesus, the spirit of truth, told him that he would be there for 15 minutes every month to help him. And what is important here, that the reps stopped, right? Because there was not an efficient way to communicate with Kardec. Kardec didn't need reps and noises to know the presence of spirits. He could receive the written communications, and he was receiving many of the time, so he didn't need the noises. And he gives a very good example, right? It's no longer necessary to beat a drum to awaken soldiers when they have already arisen. Now, a medium of physical effects, the effects will continue to happen because he or she is a medium of physical effect, right? But in this case, Kardec is talking about something different, just to call the attention. And then he talks about a friend that his father wanted to communicate with him, and started with the noises, and then he went to a medium and received the communication from his father, and the noises stopped. Again, we are talking specifically about physical phenomena happening to call our attention, and this can be the reason behind that is to make people aware of the necessity sometimes to look for the spiritual nature, to learn more about spirituality for different reasons. We met throughout the years many people that arrive at the Spiritist Center saying, "Oh, I think I'm a medium. I need to develop my mediumship," which is not a work I like a lot. I prefer educate my mediumship. And then they start studying and their mediumship disappear. So the mediumship was only a call for them to start looking for learning and understanding. And some of them educate their mediumship and continue work with their mediumship. Okay. Any questions here, comment? Okay, 87.
87. Spontaneous manifestations are not always limited to noises and raps. They sometimes degenerate into variable racket and disturbances. Furniture and other objects are flipped over. Various projectiles are hurled about outside the room. Doors and windows are opened and closed by invisible hands, and window panes are broken. None of this can be attributed to illusion. Okay.
This disorder is quite often very real, though at times it is only apparent.
A racket may be heard in an adjoining room, the crash of dinnerware as it apparently hits the floor, or logs of wood rolling around. Then when one runs to investigate, everything is found to be peaceful and in order. However, leave the room and the turmoil starts all over again.
Okay, these are physical phenomena, spontaneous manifestation. We had someone that used to go to our center very recently. She moved away from this country, but she's a medium of physical phenomena. This would happen with her all the time in the kitchen. Plates would fall, doors and windows open and close, a lot of noise, and she was afraid of it and was not willing to study and to deal with it. So it will continue to happen until she decides to educate herself. She's studying, she's trying, but she's afraid of mediumship. She's not afraid of studying. Laura, that is here, I don't know if she can talk, but she is a medium of physical phenomena also, and she experiences different of types of these phenomena with her, right, Laura?
Yeah, especially when I was a kid, I would be awoken nightly, and in the room, the lights would be going on and off. The closet doors, I had bifold closet doors, and they would open and close on their own. The garbage can would be moving and like in the air. Um, it was terrifying. When I woke up and I would notice everything, then all of a sudden everything would stop and the garbage can would hit the floor. That's just one instance, but we had the knocks. The garage door would sound like it would open up constantly in the middle of the night. You'd have to go check it, and it wasn't opened. Um, the phone would ring, and it's funny, we had this old antique phone that my father had gotten as a gift, and it wasn't plugged in, and it would ring constantly. And you'd pick it up, and no one would be there because it wasn't plugged in. But this is the phenomena that would happen, as a child. But even today, my reading glasses will disappear. The remote to the TV will disappear. I'll take in groceries, and all of a sudden, what I just put on the counter will no longer be there. And it's in that case, I have learned it's my vibration, because I guess I'm too hurried, or I have too much going on, or there might be something stressful that's happening. Um, and that can interfere with how things actually disappear. But that I've learned. I have to take a break. I got to walk away. I got to reset myself. Be like, okay, I know, where I just put, the laundry detergent. I have to go do laundry. I know it's right there. I just can't see it. And I'll go back and it will be there. And then I'll proceed. But I think it's a way of teaching me and how to be in a healthier vibration. Like a lot of mediums who come, for help, I realize that, they say, well, it's interesting because it's an opposite in my observation. They say that, well, you have to raise your vibration to be in a healthy state of vibration. But in actuality, you're coming down. You have to come down out of this vibration that is the unhealthy vibration, I call the unbalanced vibration, that causes these effects. And that can also cause, I guess, your more interference from, unwanted negative spirits. But yeah, the physical effects are something. It's something that you don't control. When things were real bad here at our house, you would hear people walking on the roof. You would hear someone trying to break in on the roof when it was really out of control. We actually left our house. We shut off the electricity. We left our house. We went to a hotel. We took the animals. And that's when we started looking for help. And that's when we went to priests, which didn't work. It worked for a little bit. It calmed things down, but then things just escalated again. And it took a while for me to wind up at the Spiritus Center to learn, to read, to study, to understand what was happening. And a lot of self-reflection and learning about myself and how I have to control the physical effects as opposed to allowing them, or interfering spirits who could be in the area, allow them to interfere with my personal life and within our home. And also doing the gospel at home weekly, religiously at the same time, and not taking that for granted, not changing the hour, trying to make that the same every week. That has helped greatly. Yeah, so it's very interesting thing. It's an interesting phenomenon, but still learning,
Yeah.
still working on it, to be
Yes.
honest.
But it goes back to what I mentioned, right? It's educating yourself. That's the best way to learn to control the mediumship, to educate your mediumship, because it's something that you have. It's not you cannot pretend that you don't have. You have it. So how to deal
Yeah.
with it? That's the challenge, right?
And it's interesting because you said that the other woman was afraid. I was
Yeah.
thinking the other day, it's interesting that I even had the thought that you come to a point where you're so afraid that you can no longer have fear. Like it goes away. Like if you've ever cried so long, so hard because of a loss of someone that you just can't cry anymore, like it's out. If that makes any sense, it's the only relation that I could compare it to, if I'm making any sense to anyone. But that was the only
Yeah.
thing that I could compare it to. That you get
Yeah,
to
no,
a
it
point
makes a lot of sense. Yes,
where,
absolutely.
you know, there's no longer fear. I have to figure it out. I have to learn. I have to apply. I have to reflect. And that's basically, you know, what I've been doing for, I don't even know how many years it's been. It's been a long time since I've been at the Spirit Center. But that's, you know, it's continual study and continual learning and continual applying. Because, you know, it can happen. If I get upset, if I get off balance, if I have to go to places that have a lot more discarnate, I can be affected. You know, when my mom was very sick and passing away, being in the nursing home, being in hospice, being in the hospitals all the time, being at the funeral home, you know, I would have to prepare and pray and hope that I would be all right. And I mean, I was having a lot of difficulties getting to and from places because of missing exits that should be there, and then, you know, they change, they're not. You know, things like that. You know, so you have to be really aware of how you feel and what vibrations you're having, and try to handle them in healthier ways, as I guess opposed to the only way you knew in the past. You know, if that makes sense, because you have
Yes.
to evolve. You have to develop your own, a better balance, a healthier vibration, by coming away from those old ways of behavior and cultivating new ways of behavior.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to you know what we learn in Spiritism, right? First, love one another. Second, educate yourself. We need to learn more about ourselves. We need to learn about our challenges, our difficulties, and try to improve. Again, it's we need to understand we are imperfect spirits. We are going to struggle. We are going to have difficulties, but how we deal with our difficulties is our way of learning and evolving. So, thanks, Laura. Very important.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other comments, questions here? Okay, slide 88.
88. Such manifestations are neither rare nor new, and there are few local chronicles that do not contain some account of this type. There is no doubt that fear has often exaggerated the facts, which have assumed gigantically ridiculous proportions when passed from one person to the next. With the help of superstition, the houses in which such phenomena occur have been considered as being haunted by the devil. Hence all the fantastic and horrifying fables of ghosts. Deception, on the other hand, has not lost the opportunity to exploit such credulity to its own profit. Even when they are reduced to reality, one may certainly understand the impression that incidents of this kind can have on weak characters who have been predisposed to superstitious notions by education. The safest way to avoid the troubles that can arise from these incidents, because they cannot be prevented, is to make the truth known. The simplest incidents become frightening when the causes behind them are unknown. When there is finally widespread familiarity with spirits, and when those with whom they communicate no longer believe they are dealing with a legend of demons, fear will disappear completely. In La Review Spirit, many authentic occurrences of this kind have been recorded, among which are the story of the rapping spirit of, okay, can't see,
Bergzar Ben,
can't see.
whose nasty influence lasted 8 years, May, June, and July issues of 1858. That of the spirit of Diebelsdorf, August 1858. That of the baker of Grand Vent, close to Dieppe, March 1860. The one of Noyers Street in Paris, August 1860. The spirit of Castel Naudori, entitled L'Histoire d'une Damnée, February 1860. The one of the manufacturer of St. Petersburg, April 1860, and many others. Now, here, Kardec is talking about, that these manifestations, again, they are not rare nor new, meaning they didn't start with the Sisters Fox and the beginning of spiritualism. What the Fox Sisters did, Fox Sisters did was to communicate with the spirit and create something out of it. If you go, I was reading some of these articles on the Spiritist Review, that we have all of them in English, the 1858, the 1860. You can find these cases there. I was thinking of bringing them, but they are too long. So it would take the whole class just to read, and they are a lot of more of the same. So it's just physical phenomena happening, and scaring people and making people believe in the devil, in ghosts, and all these things that until today people believe, right? We are very close to Halloween, so the haunted houses are all in vogue now, right?
Mhm.
People love to go to haunted houses to talk about ghosts, and a lot of people are doing it out of entertainment. But some people really experience this, and they are very afraid of it. And Kardec says very clearly, the safest way to avoid the troubles is to make the truth known. Laura described what happened to her, to what happens to her, and how she is now able to learn how to deal with this situation. So when she was a kid, she was very afraid. When the family were suffering the effect, they moved away from the house. Nowadays, they still happen, but things are more under control because we know how to deal with it. So the moment we stop believing that it is the devil, that there are ghosts, that this is all reality, in the sense that this is all spiritual phenomena that really happens, and how to deal with it is what we should prepare ourselves, then we start being able to control it. We need first to lose the fear, because again, spirits can hurt us less than incarnate ones. We should be more afraid of incarnate ones than of spirits. Of course, with physical phenomena, there can be accidents that can hurt us, and they can cause accidents to hurt us, but it's less likely for something like this to happen than you are facing someone that is violent in the street, or a drunk driver, or something like that. So when we talk about all these phenomena, I was remembering the notion of miracles, right? Spiritism teaches us that miracles do not really exist. What does exist is our lack of understanding of the natural laws, God's laws. So there are phenomena that we cannot explain, and we call it miracles, but it's just our lack of understanding. In the book Genesis, Kardec is going to go deeper into the study of miracles according to Spiritism. So all of this is, again, to remind us that these phenomena are real, but we need to learn how to deal with it. Kardec gives some examples here. I read some of these examples, and I don't think there is much to talk about them, because they are more of the same. A lot of noises, a lot of disturbances. Some of them affected more people, some of them affected one person, but it's all physical phenomena, and people didn't know what to do with it. And when Kardec is bringing the concept of spiritism and the study of mediumship, is to help us understand and learn how to deal with this phenomena. Nowadays, the physical phenomena happens much less than they used to happen at that time, because it's not important to us. More important is the intelligent phenomena, which produces books, which produces the assistance of spirits, like we do in our mediumship meeting and so on. Okay?
Okay, 89. Manifestations of this nature often assume the character of bona fide persecution. We know of 6 sisters who lived together and who were for several years awoke in the morning to find their clothing scattered everywhere, hidden in the ceiling, or ripped and cut to pieces in spite of their precautions in keeping them locked up. Often persons have been lying down but perfectly awake and have seen the curtains thrown open, or their covers and pillows violently snatched away, or they have been lifted into the air and sometimes even thrown out of bed. These events are more frequent than one might think, but most victims keep quiet out of fear of being ridiculed. We know that due to these facts, some of these persons have been subjected to medical treatment for deranged individuals as though they were experiencing hallucinations. And as a result, they ended up actually losing their minds. Medicine cannot comprehend such incidents, since it will only accept material causes, a fact which has led to disastrous errors. History will someday comment on certain treatments of the 19th century in the same way it comments nowadays on certain procedures of medieval times. We perfectly accept the fact that some of these incidents are the work of malice or malevolence, but since there has been sufficiently verified that they are not produced by any human, we must conclude that they are, according to some, the work of the devil, or according to others, the work of spirit. But what spirits?
Okay. Now, we have to understand that spirits are just us on the other side without the physical body. The same way that there are a lot of people that like to have fun at the expense of others here, that cause harm to others out of fun. There are, of course, spirits in the spiritual world that want to make fun of others and want to scare others, want to play with others. And how does it work when someone is making fun of another person, right? If the other person reacts and gets angry, the more the person who is making fun wants to continue. If the other person doesn't react, doesn't entertain, just ignores, they eventually get tired and move on. So the spirit or spirits bothering these 6 sisters, of course, one of them probably was a medium of physical effect. They've been doing all this, and of course, they disturb them a lot. If they knew better how to deal with this, or if they decided just to ignore, which is not easy, right? Because you can imagine at that time, without the knowledge that Spiritism brought with what Kardec brought, and then nowadays a lot of people still not aware of how to deal with this. It's very difficult to just ignore. But again, the recipe here on the education is, Laura has learned and is learning how to deal with this phenomena around her. But again, if this is this starts out of nothing, and it's just annoying us. If we don't allow it to really bother us that much, eventually, if there is not more a more serious objective behind it to call our attention for something, if it's just out of fun, it is going to disappear. Very interesting when Kardec says history will someday comment on certain treatments of the 19th century, the same way it comments nowadays on certain procedures of medieval times. And it's exactly what happens, right? Some of the treatments that were done in the 19th century nowadays are considered barbaric treatments, but some of them are still being done today. Some of these treatments, some people have been sent to mental institutions with the diagnosis of hallucinations and things like that, and have been put on heavy medication, and in reality it's just a mediumship, or the ability to see or to hear or to interact with the spiritual world. Again, Kardec then concludes, well, we need to understand this is the work of spirits, but what spirits? That's what he's going to talk to us next. Meaning, how we identify what is the source of this phenomenon that is happening around us. What for? Like Elmo likes to ask the question, right? What for? Why is this happening? What for is more important. Okay?
Okay.
Highly evolved spirits, like serious and responsible human individuals, do not enjoy themselves by causing an uproar.
We have often interviewed the spirits involved in this type of phenomenon about their reason for troubling someone's rest, and have found that most of them have only wanted to entertain themselves. They are frivolous spirits rather than evil, who laugh about the alarm they cause in the futile research their victims undertake in trying to find out the cause of the commotion. They will often attach themselves to individuals and entertain themselves by troubling them everywhere they go. At other times, they attach themselves to a particular place out of pure caprice, but they sometimes do so out of vengeance, as we will see. In certain cases, however, their intentions are more praiseworthy. They want to call attention to themselves and to establish communications, whether to give useful advice to the person whom they are addressing or to make requests for themselves. We have often seen them ask for prayers or the fulfillment of some obligations they were unable to accomplish. Others, for their own peace of mind, want to mend a wrong they have committed while alive. It is usually a mistake to fear their presence, which may be untimely but not dangerous. The desire to be free of them is understandable, but the way used to do so is usually the opposite of what should be done. When dealing with spirits who are merely entertaining themselves, the more seriously they are taken, the more persistent they become, like ordinary children, or bother people even more the more impatient they become, and who frighten the timid. On the other hand, if people were simply to laugh at their antics, they would tire of them
and leave their victims in peace. We know someone who, instead of being annoyed by them, urged them on, challenging them to do this or that, so that after a few days they went away.
But as we have said, there are some who act with less frivolous reasons. Therefore, it is always best to try to find out what they want. If they ask for something, their visits are sure to cease when they have been satisfied. The best way for obtaining information is to evoke them through a capable writing medium. From their responses, one can determine who they are and may act accordingly. If an unhappy spirit is involved, charity requires treating it with the attention it deserves. If it is a deceptive spirit, we may deal with it directly. If it is evil, we must pray to God to enable it to become better. In all cases, however, prayer can only bring good results. On the other hand, solemn exorcism formulas only provoke them to laughter. They are of no consequence to them. If one can communicate with them, one should distrust the burlesque of scary titles, and they sometimes give themselves in order to entertain themselves at the gullibility of their audience. We shall return to deal with this subject in more detail, as well as the causes they frequently render prayers useless in the chapters Haunted Places, 9, and the Obsession, 23.
Thanks. Okay. So, first, high evolved spirits do not enjoy themselves by causing an uproar. So Kardec talked to different spirits and found that there are three types of communications, right? The frivolous spirits that want to laugh about the alarm they cause, they are entertaining themselves. That's what we talk about. Sometimes they attach themselves to a particular place out of pure caprice or out of vengeance. Just remember the movie The Others, right? Those spirits that they thought they were still alive and they were living in the house, and they thought about the incarnate ones living there as intruders, but they were the ones that in the end were the intruders, right? It's a very good movie that talks about spirits that have gone to the other side. Now, in some cases, their intentions are more praiseworthy, right? They want to call the attention and establish communication, either to give advice to the person they are addressing or making a request. And we, instead of being afraid or instead of being annoyed, we should try to find out what's going on there. How do we do this? Again, nowadays, for us here, that we have the ability to bring these spirits to a spiritist center. They are brought and they are taken care in our mediumship meeting. If we don't have this ability, we should just pray for them and ask them to be helped and assisted, and not be scared and not be too curious. If it is happening and we cannot take it somewhere with us, just let us just ask for them to be assisted, to be helped, and continue do our prayers. Like Laura said, she does the gospel at home every week, same day, same time. If the disturbance becomes a little bit too much, we can start doing the gospel every day, because we have to pray every day, right? It's recommended we pray when we wake up, when we go to sleep, but prayers, sincere prayer, communicating with our protecting spirits. And then Kardec talks, if they just are there to entertain themselves, if we stop paying attention, they will disappear. If they want to be helped in some way, we can help them by sending our prayers, treating them with the attention it deserves. And then he talks about exorcism, why exorcism doesn't work. Because the formulas only make them laugh. You can even separate obsessing spirit from the obsessed. But if you do not educate the spirit, it's just a temporary separation. The moment the obsessed lower their vibration, they will attract back the spirit, and the problem will begin again. Only by educating both sides is that you are able to deal with the obsession. Sometimes the cases are very serious and it requires a lot more work, and this is studied later in this book, the cases of fascination and subjugation, possession, that Kardec in the beginning didn't accept the term, and then eventually he changed his mind during cases of possession that he learned more about, and he changes his mind in the Spiritist Review later in his life. Okay?
Okay. Number 91.
Yes.
Okay. Although they are produced by less evolved spirits, these phenomena are quite often caused by spirits of a higher order for the purpose of demonstrating the existence of incorporeal beings and a power superior to that of humans. The repercussions that result from them, the very horror that can stir up, call attention to the matter and end up opening the eyes of the most incredulous, who would otherwise think it simpler to regard the phenomenon as effects of the imagination, a very convenient explanation that dispenses with
searching for others. But when objects are turned over or thrown at people's heads, it will take a very complacent imagination not to see that the incidents are real.
If something occurs, it obviously has a cause, and if a cool and collective observation shows the effect to be independent of any human will or material cause, and that it furthermore shows obvious signs of its intelligence and free will, its most characteristic trait, people will be forced to attribute it to concealed intelligence. But who are these mysterious beings? That is what Spiritist studies have revealed in a way that is hard to dispute, thanks to the means such studies have provided for communicating with them. Moreover, Spiritist studies have also taught us how to determine what is real, false, or exaggerated about the phenomenon we have not witnessed. When a strange effect occurs, a noise, a movement, or even an apparition, the first thought that should enter our minds is that its cause is completely natural, because that is the most probable one. We must thus search for its cause with great care and not accept the intervention of spirits unless we do so judiciously. This will enable us to avoid illusion. For example, someone who receives a slap or blow from a cane to the back without being approached by anyone, as has happened, could not doubt the presence of an invisible being. We must caution ourselves against reports that can be considered to be more or less exaggerated, and also against our own impressions, so that we do not attribute an unseen origin to everything we find unexplainable. There are many simple and natural causes that can produce effects that appear quite strange at first glance, and it would obviously be superstitious to see spirits everywhere occupied with
overturning furniture, breaking windows, and causing all sorts of domestic disturbances that may more reasonably be attributed to our own carelessness.
Okay.
So what Kardec is telling us here is let us be very careful with these noises, these things that happen around us. When we start studying Spiritism, we tend to attribute everything that happens to the spirits, all the things physical and mental, spiritual that happens to us. We blame the spirits or we thank the spirits, and in reality, there is a lot of things that happen in our daily lives. They're just things that happen in the physical world. I remember when we first moved to London and we started studying Spiritism. For me, it was really the beginning of everything. I haven't even entertained the notion of studying Spiritism. I just went to accompany Jussara. Janet Duncan, who's still alive and is, I think she's a couple of years younger than Divaldo. She's like 95 today. She just had her birthday in August, and she's the one that opened the Spiritist Center there in London, the first one in English in 1980 something, and then she translated the Gospel According to Spiritism to English. She lived in Brazil for 30 years and met Chico Xavier, and through his instructions, she went back to London to create the Spiritist Center there. She used to tell us, be careful with all these noises that you hear in the houses here in London. They are all very old houses, and there is a lot of noises that happen because they are old houses. There's nothing to do with spirits. Don't start thinking that every noise that you hear in your house is related to a spirit, because 99% of them are not. And it applies here also in New York, right? You have these old buildings, even the place where we have our spiritist center, right? We have these these noises that sometimes happen during our mediumship meeting, caused by the heating in those tubulations that we have in our room, right? And it really sounds like spirits are trying to disturb us, but it's just the heating. It's just the noise of the heating being turned on and off. And of course, Carol, Soraya, you remember that very clearly, right? And if
right.
you start, sorry.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, and if you start thinking that everything comes from the spirits, you go crazy, right? Because it doesn't. A lot of things just happen, right?
Yeah.
A plate falls in the kitchen. It's not the spirits. It's you that didn't put the place in the correct place. Didn't put it safely, right? That's the first thing. Now, if several plates start falling one over the other, and this phenomena that you cannot explain, and you didn't organize things in an efficient way, then you entertain the spiritual phenomenon. He talks about someone who receives a slap, a blow from a cane onto the back without being approached by anyone, right? One day, many years ago, I was walking from work to the Spiritist Center, and someone hit me in the back. And I was almost arriving at the Spiritist Center. And I turned around, and there was someone there, someone kind of deranged. And I look at him. I look at him and said, "What happened here?" And he didn't say anything that made sense, and I just moved away. Again, being close to the Spirit Center and arriving there, I could have immediately thought, "Wow, I was hit by a spirit," if I didn't look around me, right? It's most of the cases. The reason is natural. Now, again, if you are a medium of physical phenomena, then it's a different story, like the lady that I mentioned before, and what happens to Laura. This is different, right? Because it's already something that happens for a long time, is well established. But even for Laura, right, she has to be sure that it's not, the window that opened the wind that opened the window because we didn't close it how we should. Sometimes it's just physical phenomena, not spiritual phenomena. Okay.
The hurling of objects, 92. The explanation of how inert objects are moved naturally applies to all the spontaneous effects we have just dealt with. Although they are louder than raps within a table, noises have the same cause. The hurling and displacement of objects are produced by the same force that lifts any object into the air. There is even a circumstance that serves to support this theory. We might ask where the medium may be found in these cases, and the spirits have explained that there is always someone whose forces are used unwittingly. Spontaneous manifestations rarely occur in isolated areas, but almost always occur in inhabited houses and are due to the presence of certain individuals who unknowingly exert their influence. These people are mediums, but are unaware of their abilities. We thus call them natural mediums. There are two other mediums, what natural somnambulists are to magnetic somnambulists, and are as worthy of examination.
Okay, so here he's talking more about the movement of objects, not noises, right? Because he was talking about raps and bangs and things like that. Now, the turning tables is what started the spiritist movement, right? The tables will elevate, go down, So how this phenomena was produced? By the spirits using the ectoplasm of a medium present in the region. It doesn't even need to be in the place, but normally it would be one of the mediums that was around the table. But if there was no medium around the table, could be from other places. Kardec says very clearly here where the medium may be found in this case, and the spirits have explained that there is always someone whose forces are used unwittingly. There are always people around us capable of producing ectoplasm in a way that can be used by the spirits. And again, you don't need to be an ostensive medium of a physical phenomena to produce ectoplasm. Some mediums will produce ectoplasm in a less significant way, but enough for spirits to use it to cause some disturbances. You know, for a plate to fall in the kitchen, if it's not our disregard for taking care of it. It doesn't need a lot of ectoplasm, right? Now, for a heavy table to go up, much more ectoplasm will be needed. So it's interesting how Kardec says that spontaneous manifestations rarely occur in isolated areas, but they can occur if there is a medium, right? Again, you need a medium of physical phenomena. I was thinking of that phrase: if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's around, does it make a noise? That question, that is a philosophical question, right? It does make a noise, but nobody hears. So there is this phenomena that the spirits, the ectoplasm, can be also be produced by for vegetation, by animals, and spirit, if needed, can use it, but it will be much less effective and much less intense. But you can find wherever there are living beings, there is ectoplasm being produced. Okay. And then he talks about sonambulism or magnetic sonambulism, and he's going to examine that. We're not going into that. Natural mediums that are unaware of their abilities. They are mediums, but they are not. They don't know they are mediums because their mediumship doesn't, most likely doesn't disturb their regular life. So they are mediums that are not disturbed by their mediumship. And you know, we have those cases, people that start studying spiritism without knowing that they're mediums, and then start doing the mediumship course or studies, and then eventually start producing mediumship phenomena, which is, you know, their mediumship is not very ostensive, so it doesn't really call them their attention until they start studying it, become more interested, and then they start producing mediumship phenomena. Okay.
Okay. Number 93. The voluntary or involuntary intervention of an individual endowed with a special aptitude appears to be necessary in most cases to produce these phenomena, although sometimes there are circumstances where a spirit seems to be acting alone. However, even in such cases, it could still be taken the animalized fluid from someone who is not in the immediate area. This would explain why it is that even though spirits are constantly around us, they do not
cause disturbances all the time. A spirit must first want to, and must have a purpose and a motive, without which it does not do anything.
Okay. So
Then
it must find, yes, thank you. Then it must find an individual nearby who is capable of aiding it where it intends to act, a coincidence that rarely happens. If such an individual unexpectedly appears, the spirit takes advantage of the opportunity. However, despite these favorable circumstances, it may still be prevented by a superior will, who will not allow it to act as it wants, or it may be allowed only to act within certain limits in cases where such manifestations may be considered useful, whether to serve as a means of conviction or as a trial for the person subjected to them.
Okay, so the intervention of spirits, they need a medium to be there, right? They could be taking the ectoplasm, which is called the animalized fluid here by Kardec, from someone who was not in the immediate area, but it's around. Now, that's what Kardec says. We have spirits around us all the time, but we are not seeing this phenomena happening at all times, because the spirit must want to produce the phenomena. It must have a purpose of a motive, without which it does not produce the phenomena. So it must find an individual and must want to do it. So it's a coincidence that rarely happens. Do you remember the movie Ghost? When he's trying to learn to move physical objects in the subway, and he finds that spirit that teaches him how to kick a can. That is the spirit that is kicking the can is using ectoplasm, is producing using the ectoplasm to produce a physical phenomenon. Now, he's teaching the other spirit, Patrick Swayze, to act and use his own will and use the ectoplasm to produce a physical phenomenon. Because later in the movie, he needed to use it to prevent, I think it's Molly was her name, to be hurt by the one that caused his death, right? So in that movie, it explains very well the action of the spirits on the physical world and the use of ectoplasm. I think that's very well described. So, but above all, there is a superior will who will not allow it to act as it wants, or maybe allow only to act with certain limits in cases where such manifestations may be useful, whether to serve as a means of conviction or as a trial for the person subjected to them. Meaning, there is always the more elevated spirits that are able to control this physical phenomena, allowing them to happen or not happening, if it's in the best or not the best interest of the ones that are going to be subject. Because one thing with the physical phenomena, it's different from the intelligent phenomena. Only the medium is able to experience it. The physical phenomena will happen, and everyone that is there will see or hear or experience it, right? So for that to happen, it has to have a purpose for the whole group, right? Even to call the attention, to allow them to become interested in the phenomena, or as a trial for the group to learn more. So it's important for us to understand that there is always the intervention, the protection, and the allowance or not of the superior spirits that are involved with those cases. Okay?
Okay. 94. Regarding the above matter, we will allude to a conversation arising from events that occurred in June of 1860 on Norris Street in Paris. Details of the incident can be found in La Vue Spirit, August 1860.
Okay. Let me see if I can find this article, because maybe we should read it before. It's going to be a lot of questions and answers. Let me see if I can find the 1860 here, because if I can, I'll post it here and we read about it. 1860, yes. Okay, so let's go there. June 1860, Neuer Street. Trying to find here, just a sec.
Mhm.
Okay, it doesn't talk about it. Adoptive spirit, spirit and the little dog, spirit of an idiot, Mrs. Duhay. I should have looked before, but I didn't. Intuitive medicine, pseudo madness, tradition, faith. Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't find it. It's not in June. Okay, let's go back to the Nadia's book because I couldn't find it. It was not in, I couldn't find in the Spiritist Review in June.
Okay.
Tunnel 86 in Neuer Street. Okay.
Okay. 94. Regarding the above matter, we will allude to a conversation arising from events that occurred in June of 1860 on Norris Street in Paris. Details of the incident.
August 1860. That was, I was looking for June 1860. Okay, let me go back there. One more try. Let me go back there.
Okay.
All right. August 1860. Come on. July.
Mhm.
The Ragman of Noyers.
Yes, that's the one. Let's share this. I found it. Thanks, Wayne. There you go.
Okay. Society, June 29, 1860. The Detroit reports the following under the title Scenes of Witchcraft in the 21st century. One of the strangest things is taking place at Revue des Honoris. Mr. Lesage, an economist working at the Palace of Justice, lives in an apartment on that street. Lately, there has been debris coming from unknown places, breaking windows, hitting people in their homes, hurting them more or less seriously. These are large fragments of logs of charred pieces of coal, very heavy, and the same coal used in most of Paris. Mr. Lesage's maid was hit with several of them in her chest, resulting with profound bruises. The victim of this sorcery ended up calling the police. Some agents were placed to supervise, but they too were hit by the invisible artery and could not identify the origin of these blows, since it was impossible to stay in a home where one never knows what is going to happen. Mr. Lesage asked the landlord to cancel his lease. The request was granted, and a bailiff by the name of Mr. Vallon, meaning brave, which was perfect considering the circumstances of the process, which could not be done without danger, was sent to officiate the terms of cancellation. In fact, when the ministry officials started to edit the terms, a huge piece of coal was thrown with extreme force, coming through the window, hitting the wall and turned into dust. Mr. Vallon, okay.
Unaffected, utilized the dust to cast over the terms on the page that he was writing, just like Junot in former times utilized the earth raised by the bomb.
We then realized in 1847 at Rue de Gris, a similar incident took place. A Mr. L. coal trader was also used as a target of tremendous arrowheads, and an incomprehensible emission of stones throughout the neighborhood put fear in everyone. By the coal merchant's house, There was an empty lot where the old church of Rue del Gris used to be, and now is the school of the Brothers of the Christian Doctrine. In the beginning, it was thought that the thrown objects were coming from there, but it was soon proved wrong. When one side was watched, they would come from another. However, they ended up catching the sorcerer red-handed, and that was nobody else than Mr. L. He had resorted to this fantasy because he did not like his home and wanted to terminate his lease. However, it was not like that with Mr. Lesage, whose honorability excluded any idea of foul play, and who, as a matter of fact, was happy with the apartment. It is expected that the inquiry conducted by Mr. Ubon, Police Commissioner of Sorbonne, may clarify the mystery, which is still a tasteless joke and lasting too long.
Thanks. Let's go back to the Mizen's book now. So we know the case, what was the case. So now Kardec is only going to ask questions to St. Louis. Okay.
It's not. Number one, would you be so kind as to tell us if the events that are said to be occurring on Noah Street are real or not? We have no doubt that it is quite possible for them to occur. Yes, the events are real, but popular imagination has exaggerated the facts, whether out of fear or mockery. Nonetheless, I will repeat that they are real. The manifestations are being caused by a spirit who is entertaining itself at the expense of the inhabitants of the place.
Let's continue.
Is there someone in the house who is the cause of the manifestations? Such manifestations are always caused by the presence of a
disliked individual to whom the spirit attaches itself. The troublesome spirit is displeased with the inhabitant of the place and wants to make mischief and even make him move out.
Number 3. We would ask if there is someone among the inhabitants who is the cause of the phenomenon due to spontaneous and involuntary mediumship. That is always necessary, because if such is not the case, these incidents cannot happen. A spirit lives in a place of its own choosing. As long as there is no one there whom it can use, it remains inactive. But when such a person appears, it entertains itself as much as it can. Number 4. Is the presence of this person in the place itself indispensable? Normally, yes, and that is the case in this particular situation. That is why I said that these incidents could not be happening otherwise. But I do not mean to generalize. There are in fact cases where the medium's presence in the place itself is not necessary. Number 5, since such spirits are of a lower order, is the aptitude for the serving as their auxiliary an unfavorable assumption about the individual? Does it indicate an affinity for beings of this nature? Not exactly, because this aptitude results from a physical disposition. Nevertheless, it almost always indicates a materialistic tendency that would preferably not exist, because the more morally involved the person is, the more he or she attracts good spirits, who necessarily repel the evil ones. Number 6, where does the spirit go in search of the objects it utilizes?
It almost finds these objects in the place itself or in the vicinity.
A force that proceeds from the spirit flings them from the air and causes them to fall wherever it wishes. Number 7, since spontaneous manifestations are often allowed and even caused for the purpose of convincing disbelievers, it seems to us that if some of these individuals were themselves their target, they would be forced to yield to the evidence. People often complain of not having witnessed conclusive facts. Wouldn't it depend on spirits to provide them with appreciable proof? Don't atheists and materialists witness at every moment the effects of the power of God and of thought? But this does not prevent them from denying both God and the soul. Did the miracles of Jesus convert all his contemporaries? Didn't the Pharisees who said to him, Master, show us a sign, resemble those who today ask you to show them manifestations? If they fail to be convinced by the marvels of creation, they will be no more affected by the appearance of spirits, even if they appear in the most obvious manner, because these individuals' pride has transformed them into stubborn mules. They would have plenty of opportunities to witness them if they sought such opportunities in good faith. That is why God does not deem it appropriate to do more for them than what God has already done for those who sincerely seek to educate themselves, because God only rewards persons of goodwill. Their disbelief will not impede the fulfillment of the divine will. You have already seen that it has not hindered the expansion of the doctrine. So do not concern yourselves with their oppositions, which is to the doctrine what a shadow is to painting. It lends its creator relief. What would be there? Okay.
Merit if they had to be convinced by force. God leaves to them the responsibility for their own stubbornness, and this responsibility is heavier than you might think.
Okay.
Fortunate are those who believe without having seen, said Jesus, because they do not doubt the power of God.
Okay, number 8. Do you think it would be appropriate to evoke the Spirit in order to ask it for a few explanations? Evoke it if you want to, but it is of a low order and its answers will be quite insignificant.
Okay, we will leave the conversation with the Spirit for next month, but let's go over here what we read. So we read the case, a lot of objects being thrown the apartment, breaking windows, coal, right? Basically coal. The first question that Kardec asked St. Louis is if the events are real or not. And St. Louis says, events are real, but popular imagination has exaggerated the facts out of fear or mockery. Of course, it's being caused by spirit who is entertaining itself at the expense of the inhabitants. The manifestation is caused by a presence of a disliked individual to whom the spirit attaches itself. The spirit is displeased with the inhabitant of the place and wants them to move out. The spirit causes the phenomena because there is someone that is providing the ectoplasm for the phenomena to occur. The incidents cannot happen if not a case of involuntary mediumship. Again, it could be the medium in its place or around the place, not necessarily exactly in that place, right? And then Kardec asked the question if the spirits are of lower order, affinity for beings of a lower order. And St. Louis answers that the aptitude results from a physical disposition, but indicates a materialistic tendency, because a more morally evolved person is the more he or she attracts good spirits, who then will interfere and repel the evil ones. That's what we mentioned before. The objects are around, so the spirit can find these objects around. And then the important question here that Kardec asks is, since these manifestations are often allowed, and are there, the purpose is to convince disbelievers, and say that people sometimes complain that they don't have witnessed conclusive facts. And if their spirits, is their spirits' mission to provide the proof. And then St. Louis answers that don't atheists and materialists witness at every moment the effects of the power of God and of thought, but this does not prevent them from denying both God and the soul. The miracles of Jesus convert all his contemporaries. If not even Jesus was able to convince those around him, Jesus, a perfect spirit, producing the so-called miracles, healing people, by only his presence, the energy he was emanating would allow people to become completely affected. And even Jesus didn't convince the Pharisees.
Yeah.
So I always say, if a spirit materializes in the middle of a spiritist meeting, half of the people will run away and the other half will be fascinated, tell their neighbors, and then their neighbors wouldn't believe them. So, what's the purpose, right? It's much more relevant if we are convinced by our own studies, our own understanding, the phenomena. It's not enough to make people change their beliefs. What St. Louis tells us here, also tells Kardec, is that the divine will continue. It will, what has to happen, the law of progress happens. So it will continue to evolve, and independent of those that are trying to prevent things to happen. I watched yesterday a beautiful, beautiful movie I recommend to everyone. It's called Cabrini. It's the story of Mother Cabrini that came from Italy in the end of the 19th century, and that created a huge organization of help and assistance to the immigrants. She was the first American canonized saint, and she's the saint that protects the immigrants. And you see the movie and all the struggles that she had, and people trying to prevent him to achieve what she did, and she did it anyways. It's fascinating. And when we end the movie, I was talking to Susara, and I said, everyone knows her. All those people that try to prevent her from doing her job, the mayor of New York at the time, the Archbishop of New York at the time, the Pope, that kind of helped her, but not much. We don't know their names. We don't remember them. They're left in the dust of history. But she, the one that forced progress to happen by doing good, by helping others, is just a fascinating person. Really recommend everyone to watch it. It's called Cabrini. Cabrini is the saint, right? Mother Cabrini was her name. It's really worth watching. I watched on Amazon Prime. It's still for rent, but it should be available for free very soon, because eventually it becomes free. So again, the disbelief will not impede the fulfillment of divine will. She carried the divine will with her, and it happened despite the disbelief. And again, watching the movie, you see Manhattan and New York in the end of the 19th century, the 5 Point neighborhood that was where the Italian immigrants lived. And you look at New York today and you see, the law of progress is real. Struggles we are having today are just struggles that will help us progress, but we are much better than we were 130, 40 years ago here in this place. Again, like the movie Gangs of New York, that shows the progress being made compared to what we have today. That movie also shows us. So by the end, Kardec asked St. Louis if they should evoke the spirit. Remember, at the time Kardec, he used to evoke spirits, right? And St. Louis is kind of indifferent. Evoke if you want, but if it is of a low order, and his answers will be quite insignificant, meaning you won't learn very much from his answers, but do it anyway. So Kardec evokes the spirit and has this conversation with the spirit that will live for next month, for our study of next month. Okay? Any final comments, questions? Thank you all. So what we have anything this? I don't think we have any special advice. The one advice that we have for those that go to our Spiritist Center, to SGNY on Mondays, be prepared, not tomorrow, but the following Monday. They are going to replace the elevator in the building, so we will be without elevator till the end of the year. So for those that have struggled to go up 3 flights of stairs, think twice before going to the center. Okay, but not tomorrow. Starting 28th, we'll be without an elevator in the building for 10 weeks. At least we'll have a modern elevator after they finish the work. We have a better elevator that we won't be afraid of getting stuck in it, right? Okay, Carol, can you do our final prayer?
Yes, certainly. Good advice. Thank you very much, John, for hosting. And thank you, Sarita, for reading. And thank you, all participants today who are here and alert and learning. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we give thanks to be together as brothers and sisters for our studies of the Medium's book, Part 2, Chapter 5, subject being spontaneous physical manifestations. Excuse me. Spontaneous physical phenomena such as noises and raps can occur to draw our attention to the occurrences. We need to learn how to deal with it. Intelligent phenomena is more prevalent these days than physical phenomena. Allan Kardec received the books of the Spiritist codification through the Spirit of Truth via writing mediums. Physical effects should be investigated as to their origin and causes. Some may be normal or natural, not necessarily the effects of spirits. Hurling objects can occur to cause disturbances which have the need of ectoplasm and a medium. And this is also the want of the spirit to actually move the objects. But a spirit, again, must have ectoplasm. However, superior spirits can intervene or not. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us today. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us. And for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, the mediums, the workers, the healers, and all participants. We pray for inner peace, and especially now for world peace, and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center, SGNY, and all Spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, they may prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and throughout the night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, our friends, our loved ones, and co-workers. May we go forth as we close this meeting now, that we could be beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service and charity, which is love in action. May peace and love prevail. So be it.
Next Sunday, we have our Q&A, okay? Elmo will be back here also, so we can have our Q&A session. Next Sunday is the last Sunday of the month.